Hey everybody, welcome to today's video. I'm going to be talking about the longevity of the Ford Performance Tune, and it's as much longevity as I can give it. I got this tune when it was first offered. I've put 7,500 miles on the truck with the tune on it over the last 7 months, and before that I had driven for about 6 months and put 10,000 miles on it because I was driving to and from DC every day. So I have a lot of experience pre-tune and post-tune in all different driving environments or conditions. That said, these videos always end up going way longer because I start talking in detail way more than I put on the cards. So I generally try to do a quick bottom line up front for anybody who doesn't want to watch the whole thing. So here we go. Bottom line up front. I've had this tune for 7 months, 0 issues, mechanically, electronically, otherwise. It has been flawless. It's been great. I have put it to the test. I mean, I have put my foot to the floor and done 0 to 60 runs. I've gotten on it out on the trails. I've gone through the twisty turnies, accelerating out of corners and everything. I mean, as much as you can in a big truck like this. It's been awesome, and I've had 0 issues, and I love it. It is definitely noticeable from stock to the tune, and I mean, that's to be expected. 80 extra foot-pounds of torque, 50 extra horsepower, and it is pretty impressive. But that said, you don't notice it the day you get it installed. It is an adaptive tune. It takes a little bit of time. So give it a couple hundred miles of driving before you just say, hey, they didn't even put the tune on it or something like that. Transmission shifts way smoother, and I think that's going to be good for the overall longevity of the drivetrain as a whole. Having the transmission tuned, I think they should do that to every truck if they haven't already started doing that on the 2025s. There's no negatives to the tune as a daily driver. If you're not building boost, you're not really getting that extra power, so it's going to drive just like it did from the factory. It's not like you threw a supercharger on a V8 and went from 350 horsepower to 600 horsepower or something. It's not always there in a turbocharged car, so you can definitely drive this thing in traffic to the grocery store, to take your kids to school, and it's not going to be anything crazy. I mean, it's only 50 horsepower, 80 foot-pounds of torque. It sounds like a lot, but unless you're getting on it, you're not getting that power. So yes, it'll still drive perfectly fine as a daily driver. I actually prefer it now because it does shift better than it did when it was stock, even when I'm just driving around town. The added power does make it a whole lot more fun though. So when you do get on it, you absolutely notice that additional power. That said, just know this is an adaptive tune. It does not all take effect the day you get it installed. It takes a couple hundred miles of driving before it really opens up everything that the tune has to offer. Transmission tune is done instantly. You'll notice that as you drive away from the dealership, but you might not notice the additional power. A little bit better throttle response, so it's going to be a little more touchy, but it's not going to have that additional power right away. So you might see some reviews of people saying, I don't even know if they put the tune on my truck, I can't tell. I had that same thought. I noticed the transmission shift better, but I didn't notice that power until a couple hundred miles later when I really started getting on it, and then I compared some 0 to 60 times. Pre-tune, I was at like the 5.3s. Post-tune, down in the high 4s, high 7, 4.8-ish. So it's about a half second faster, and you definitely notice it. It does have a warranty, but that doesn't mean everybody should get it and you're covered no matter what. There are definitely going to be people out there where this is not the right choice for them, and that's awesome. I mean, this truck is phenomenal from the factory, but the tune does make it more fun. And if you're on the fence, then know that you have some coverage from your warranty. But there's things you can't do with the warranty if you get the tune. If you increase the size of your tires, the paperwork says your tune is void because you're putting additional strain and stress on the drivetrain. I have some questions about that because you could still tow something that stays within your gross vehicle weight, but I'm getting further in. Anyway, final recommendation to anybody who's on the fence about it, I would say get it. You have some warranty coverage. There's that peace of mind. It drives great, and if you're never really going to get on it and you only want it for that little percentage of time when you really do need to accelerate, you're not hurting your truck by doing this, in my opinion. People are going to argue with that, but when you tune your car, you pay to play. Sometimes bad things happen, and you got to accept that risk. If you have a 12-year or 10-year, 120,000-mile warranty, maybe this isn't for you. But anyway, that's the short version. The truck is awesome. The tune is fantastic. And I would absolutely recommend it to anybody that's out there looking for this thing. So now I want to go into the actual details that I've noticed over the past 7 months. So if that's all you want to know, thank you so much for watching. Enjoy the rest of your day. Get out there on the trails. Have a great weekend. For everybody else, I'm going to go through my initial thoughts, the performance, the drivability, the reliability, the downsides and drawbacks, and then my final thoughts. So I guess you kind of already got my initial thoughts in that first couple minutes, but I would just say don't hesitate. I mean, if you're on the fence about it, go for it. If you have been tuning cars or driving tuned cars your entire life and you're comfortable with it, you could probably get a lot more power out of this truck from an aftermarket tuner. I don't know that all the components would handle that strain all that well, but they probably would. I think people talk about the transmission being the short straw, you know, the weakest link in there, because we have the 10R60 in the Ranger Raptor, not the 10R80, which is in the bigger trucks, which is in the Mustang with the 5.0. So it's a lighter transmission. It's still rated to handle the power, but it's not overrated like the 10R80. But then again, it's also 60 pounds lighter. So, and I think it's 60 pounds. I looked it up a while back. But anyway, I think this tune is very, I don't want to say mundane because it's definitely noticeable, but it's toned down compared to some of those like stage 3 crazy tunes out there that can bring, like, for example, the Ford Explorer ST up to like 600 horsepower, something crazy, and they're running insane times. To get a truck like this down to a 4.7, 4.80 to 60 with a tune that has a warranty is phenomenal. So there's my initial thoughts. Let's get into performance. So we're going to go down the line here. Yes, this is a review on how well it does over 7 months, but I want to go through all the information. When I got this, it was a 49 state legal tune. California was not legal yet. They've gotten through CARB, and now it is 50 state legal. I don't think they will ever make this the standard tune for the truck, just because it is a little more high strung. It might cause more premature failures within like that 6-year 50,000 mile warranty or 5-year 60,000 mile warranty that you get with this truck. But it is available for you, and it is awesome, and you can get it in any state now, and I absolutely think it's worth it. You do get a 3-year 36,000 mile warranty from Ford Performance, but that time starts and the odometer starts the day you receive the truck from the factory, or the day the previous owner bought it from the factory, the in-service date, not the date that you put the tune on it. So for me, I got the tune put on at the 6-month mark at 10,000 miles. My 3-year 36-mile warranty starts from day 0. So I get 2.5 years or 26,000 miles worth of Ford Performance warranty for the tune. 7 months and 7,500 miles, I have had 0 issues with it, so I'm not concerned. My thought is, and I drive it pretty hard, my thought is if something's gonna break, it's gonna break early, or it's gonna start making noise and rattling and clunking early, and I can get that covered under warranty. Anything after that, I am absolutely gonna go and fight for the fact that if it breaks and there's a large number of transmission failures in both tuned and stock trucks, and I have the issue under my standard 5-year 60,000 mile warranty with a transmission issue, I'm going to go in there and say, hey man, you cannot blame this on the tune when you have a record of many trucks out there, stock and tuned, that are having the same issue. So that's just my thought, but I don't expect to win those arguments. I plan on making them, but like I said before, you pay to play. You tune your truck, you start doing that stuff, and there's going to be some things that pop up that you have to be willing to accept. So anyway, that's the warranty thing, and just know if you put larger tires or change the gear ratio and the differentials, you are avoiding your Ford Performance warranty according to the way it's written. Your dealership might overlook that and still do the work under warranty. That's a dealership to dealership thing, but know that it is written that they could say, hey, you've got 35s or 37s on your truck, your warranty is void because you put excess stress on the entire drivetrain by increasing that lever that everything has to turn. So keep that in mind. To the actual numbers, it takes you from 405 to 455 horsepower. Horsepower is cool, but torque to me is where it's at. This takes you from 453 foot-pounds of torque to 536 foot-pounds of torque. So you're gaining 83 foot-pounds of torque. That is huge, and that's where the additional stress through the entire drivetrain comes from. But you're already way up there at 550. I don't know how often when you accelerate or when you get on the gas, you're even gonna get up to that 450, unless you have your foot to the floor and you're trying to do like a quarter mile time or a 0 to 60 as fast as you can. I would say most of the time, you're probably not even reaching that 450 foot-pounds of torque number until you really get on it. So I would say you're probably within the stock range 99% of the time you're driving this truck. Just keep that in mind. That's not always true, but I would say as a general rule, you're pretty good on that. It does require 91 or above octane fuel. So if you have the tune on your truck, you cannot run the standard 87 or 85 octane fuel. I don't know what would happen. It'll probably start knocking. It might retard the timing some, might throw a check engine light. I haven't done it. I keep an extra 4 gallons of premium fuel up on my rack so that if I do end up at a gas station that is out of premium and it's the only one close, I have a siphon. I just siphon it down into my gas tank and I can go another 60 miles, find another gas station. I've never actually had that happen, but I do cycle that fuel through, so it's always getting changed every 3 times, but that's not what this is about. The shift points and the throttle response are going to be immediately apparent. When you first get the tune on your truck, you will notice the transmission shifts better, especially at the higher RPMs, and the throttle response is a little more reactive. That does not mean you will feel all that additional power on day one. This is an adaptive tune. It takes some time to, the computer to do its thing with the fuel to air ratio and all of the different calibrations it's doing. Over time, it will increase timing. It will, change the boost and everything in the turbos and whatever it is that this thing does to get that additional power. I'm not a tuner. I don't know. I know it's creating more boost and changing the blow off or the bypass valve information on there. But I don't want to talk about something I don't know about. But I do know you will not get the numbers on day one. So you'll see a lot of reviews of people out there saying, I got the tune, I left the dealership, and I don't think they put the tune on the truck. I can't feel it. You're not going to feel it right away. If you did a 0 to 60 the morning you went to get your tune before it was done, and you take your truck, and as you're leaving the dealership, you do another 0 to 60 with 2 miles on the odometer, or 1 mile on the odometer, you might be a little quicker because there's going to be some of that increased gain, but you're not going to be at that half second faster. That takes a little bit more time. So you might go from like a 5.3 to a 5.1. And then after a couple more 100 miles, you might get down to the 4.7s or even faster if you are really good at launching it or whatever it is. I don't know. I have never gotten faster than a 4.7, and the fastest recording I've got is a 4.89. So it is what it is. So that being said, on the adaptive and the different reviews out there, there is a forum called Ranger 6G. Most of you probably are members of it or know about it, but if you don't, it's a really great resource to talk about all of the different Rangers out there, to include the Ranger Raptor. And this post right here was on there today. The guy's name is Fourth Sword. That's his handle on Ranger 6G. And I wanted to read this because this is a great example of comparing a stock to a tuned truck that has already gone through that phase where everything's breaking in. So here we go. This is from Fourth Sword. I just picked up my 2024 Ranger Raptor today. I test drove a new 2025, but decided to check out this used 24 because I really wanted the green. So first of all, great choice. Green is awesome. It doesn't look great when it's dirty, but it is a beautiful color. All the colors are great. I just prefer green. So way to go, Fourth Sword, good color. Inadvertently, what I ended up doing was testing the Ford Performance Tune. I have always owned high performance vehicles since I was a teenager and have pretty dialed in butt dyno. For context, my current vehicle is a 2017 Cadillac ATS V with numerous mods that currently pushes around 600 horsepower, runs mid-10s in the quarter mile. So this guy is a car enthusiast. He likes to go fast. That's good to know. Back to it. Anyway, during the test drive, I noticed that this one, the 2024, felt substantially quicker than the new one, the 2025, that was stock. It was so noticeable that even my wife commented on the difference between this one and the brand new one from 2025. I asked the salesman if this one had been modified in any way, and he handed me the Ford Performance box with a tuner in it. I drove the two trucks about an hour apart, and I can tell you that I would highly recommend the tune. It made a big difference across the board. So there you go. You got somebody who drove a stock 2025 and then a tuned 2024 that had been through the break-in phase, and he could tell just by the seat of his pants that it was quicker. His wife could tell that it was quicker. So to me, that is a better comparison than someone who got the tune that day and is already telling you, hey, it's not as great. I mean, I get it, it's frustrating. You get the tune and you want it instantly, but just give it some time and you will appreciate it. And then I'm gonna put the link to that forum, this specific thread on here, because that's the first out of 4 pages of comments, and all of the comments are really good. There's people on there, the one I really liked was Lion77, goes through the entire warranty and then talks about the concerns or the things to think about with the tune. He's not telling you, don't get it because it's going to blow up your engine, or get it, everything's safe. He's saying, hey, here's things to consider, think about, this is where the additional strain is going on your drivetrain. He talks about the 10R60 transmission versus the 10R80 a little bit. And then a comparison I drew from that was, what if you're towing a vehicle, or what if you're towing a trailer that's 4,500 pounds up a grade, and you've got your foot to the floor in third gear, and you're up at like 5,500 RPM, putting out max torque with all of that extra weight. You're putting a ton of strain on this. So it's something to think about. That would be extremely hard on your vehicle, yet somehow that would probably be covered by warranty if it blew up, versus if you had 35s and no extra weight in your truck, they could void it. So just, there's always the cat and mouse game with the dealership of the tune caused it, or the tune didn't cause it, or you voided it because of this or that. Just go into it knowing that those are some things to be concerned with. Okay, so that was the performance. We're gonna move on to the drivability of the truck with the tune. Sorry, just making sure it's still recording because I've had my phone die before. Okay, so drivability with the tune. Like I said, I did 6 months and 10,000 miles with no tune, and then I've done 7 months and another 7,500 miles with the tune. Driving around town, driving to and from my kids' school, driving to and from the grocery store, even driving to work on the back roads and the freeway, it is identical with smoother shifting to when it was stock, because I'm not putting my foot to the floor and building, 15 plus pounds of boost at every stop sign, at every green light, things like that. So overall drivability, I would say it improves in the sense that the transmission is better. The throttle response is a little touchier, but nothing crazy. It's kind of like going from normal mode to sport mode. There, you feel the difference right there, but it's still perfectly drivable in sport mode. So I would say day-to-day drivability of it is awesome. And then when you need that power, when you are trying to get onto the freeway, or if you came to a red light and you realize you need to be on the lane to the right and you want to get out in front of that other guy, you will have that extra power available to you, and it's always there. It's awesome. I love it. Let's see, off-road. So I was a little bit concerned, kind of ignorantly, I guess, that taking this thing off-road with this extra 80 foot-pounds of torque is going to be a problem, and I'm going to be slipping all over the place and spinning the tires. That is not the case at all. Just like when you're driving around town, if you don't have your foot in it and you're not building boost, you're not creating that extra power. So this thing still handles extremely well off-road and is extremely easy to control the throttle to get up and over obstacles. Again, I don't notice any downside to the tune when I'm out on the trails. And then when there is a wide open section and you get on it, man, it is fun. You get all 4 tires kind of spinning. When you're in the off-road modes, it turns off the traction control so you can have a little bit more fun out there. And I just absolutely love that about it. So I would say on-road, it's better. Off-road, it's better. And then 0 to 60, so people say like, oh, it's night and day. I would compare it like it's late evening to night as the comparison. It was already a quick truck, and it's quicker now. It's not the same as if you like threw a supercharger on a car that was naturally aspirated before. It's noticeable, but it's not crazy. And I had this same idea, or the same realization, when I went from my Focus ST to a Focus RS. It was 100 more horsepower, and it was all-wheel drive. And I'm expecting it to be like going from a 6-cylinder Mustang to a new like C8 Corvette. Like, I have these expectations of 100 more horsepower. It's going to be insane. It was quicker, but it was not what I had built it up in my head to be. And this is kind of similar to that, but I had that experience to know, don't expect to be running like next to a Tesla Plaid because you got the tune on this thing. So it is way more fun. It is more power. It does make it more fun when you're coming out of a corner and stuff, but it's not like you turned your truck into a sports car. It is a very sporty truck, but you're still going to get smoked by an M3. I already said this, in traffic it's no different. Stop and go, it's fine. The adaptive cruise control is awesome, but that's not what this video is about. And that is all I'll say about the drivability. Now let's get into the reliability. So like I said, 7 months, 7,500 miles. I have had 0 issues with this thing. It really only adds that additional power when you're under full throttle. So like I said before, 99% of the time, you're gonna be within stock ranges. It's that little bit when you really get on it, when you're putting the tune and the entire drivetrain to the test, not even to the limit, to the test of what the engineer said it was capable of. So again, I think this is great. If there was a weak link in your vehicle that was going to break anyway, yes, this tune is going to make that break faster. But my truck, for example, has been awesome. The only issues I had were cosmetic little things, and I just got over those quickly. At first, when I just paid 60 grand for this truck and paid a little bit over MSRP, I saw that like my dome light wasn't working and my upholstery on my seat was wrinkly, and I was like, man, this is BS. But now I look at that and think, I can't believe I complained about that. This truck is amazing as a whole. The next thing on here, when I do oil changes, I always take charge pipes, not off altogether, but disconnect and look in there to see how much oil is going past there on turbocharged cars. I didn't do it on my 1994 Chevy S10, but on this truck, on my BMW, on my Focus ST and RS, I always kind of look through the charge pipes and see if there's a bunch of oil residue in there. I did not notice any crazy difference between the stock and with the tune. There's a little bit in there, and I also did include an oil catch can a couple thousand miles after I had the car tuned, or the truck tuned. So an oil catch can just works in place of your PCV, your positive crank ventilation system, that takes some of the blow-by it takes some of the blow-by that goes up into the valves, and it would go back into the intake. Now it goes through an oil air separator and contains that in a little canister. So I empty that every time I do an oil change too, and it's a minimal amount, but I like to keep that from the intake. All that said, no difference from just a putting my finger in there and feeling how much oil is compared before and after the tune. So take that for what it's worth. It's not scientific at all, but it's not like I noticed, oh man, there's a teaspoon of oil in there now after the tune, when before it was a quarter of a teaspoon. So anyway, I'm gonna move on from there. I personally think this has to improve the longevity of the entire drivetrain, because stock, it shifted pretty hard from like second to third, third to fourth, fourth to fifth, when you're up in the high RPMs, up at 6,000 RPM. After that, it's kind of slowed down a little bit because you're already up to speed. But in those lower gears, higher RPMs, it shifted really hard. And I don't want to say it clunked, but it definitely had a jerk to it. It felt very sporty, but it's also like makes you cringe, like, oh man, my entire drivetrain has to deal with that. Now, it still shifts quickly, but it shifts way smoother under power. So I gotta believe that's gonna be better for the transmission, the transfer case, the differentials, the axles, everything. So I personally think this transmission tune should be standard on every Ford Ranger or Ford Ranger Raptor, whichever. I mean, I guess this is the one with the 3-liter, but if it does the same shift on all the other ones, make that a standard tune, make it a recall, make it a service bulletin. Every truck should have this transmission tune at a minimum, but I do think that's gonna help the reliability of the truck as a whole. So to me, that is a great feature of this tune. It's not just a power, it's also a transmission tune. We already talked about the fact that you have to have 91 octane fuel, and then my mileage went from 16.7 pre-tune to 14.7 post-tune. There's a lot of variables in there. Before I had the tune, it was summer into fall, nice weather. I didn't have to start my truck 15 minutes before I would drive it. I got the tune, and then it started getting really cold, so I would start my truck from inside the house and let it idle for 15 minutes, 10 minutes in the morning. So that right there killed it. But also just driving, I noticed on individual trips, the gas mileage was absolutely a little bit worse because I was having more fun. I was getting on it way more often. I was accelerating away when it was an open road just because it sounded awesome, it was fun. I didn't drive any more or less in sport mode than I did before, but I would definitely drive more spirited once I had the tune because it was just that much more fun. On a road trip, and it was not very scientific, I did like a 200-mile trip where I got 20.8 or almost 21 miles to the gallon, but that was going like 55 miles an hour behind a truck, a safe distance, but letting it, make that little wind tunnel for me. So I would not say you're gonna get better mileage with the tune. You will most likely get worse mileage because it's more fun to drive. I don't think it makes it less efficient. It just makes it way more tempting to get on it and burn through your fuel quicker. And then the other thing, when I drive normally, I just keep my my average miles per gallon as my display in there with my tachometer and my speedometer and all my normal 4 gauges up at the top. But when I'm doing like off-roading, when I'm doing some spirited driving through some fun roads, or when I'm doing 0 to 60 runs, I always go to the measurements page, which shows you your engine oil temperature, your engine oil pressure, your cylinder head temperature, your transmission temperature, your boost vacuum, your air inlet temperature, your charge temperature, all those different things. I always monitor those as I'm doing my, I got a hair on me, as I'm doing my spirited runs or my 0 to 60 runs. those did not change almost at all with the tune versus non-tune. Especially in day-to-day driving, they are exactly the same across the board, dependent on ambient temperature. Spirited driving, yes, everything got a little bit warmer after like 8 or 10 0 to 60 runs, but they were already getting high on the stock one. So once it was tuned, it was just a little bit more, but everything stayed within range the entire time. And I was not on a track doing like 30 minutes. I would do a run, I would drive back around, I would do a run. So it was hard on the truck, but not crazy on the truck. It was not full gas for an hour straight. So I don't have those numbers, but it's approved by Ford, so I'm assuming they did all that testing. So that's it for reliability. I think it's great. Now I want to get into the downsides. I would say this thing is awesome, but it's not for everybody. So it does come with a limited warranty. I am very risk averse. I always do like the ORM, the operational risk management, and make all my decisions based on what is the threat of something bad happening, 1 to 4, and then what is the severity of that thing happening, 1 to 4. And you got this square. If you're in the military, you know all about ORM, and even I'm guessing business does it too. But the idea is if there's a high likelihood of a bad thing happening, that puts you up in the high right into the red, and you don't want it. If the worst thing that can happen is the engine blows up and the whole car starts on fire, at that point, I mean, it's a total loss. You're kind of screwed. But the likelihood of that happening is so low, you can't take that always into account. You always know in the back of your mind that that possibility is there, but it's ludicrously small. And then a high likelihood thing, I don't know, maybe overspinning a turbo, or you break a differential. I would still say that's very low probability, but more than zero. And both of those things are expensive, but it's not a total loss. You're gonna be out some. It'll be covered during your warranty period, and then even after that, they have to prove that it was the tune that caused it. Most likely they will be able to do that after your warranty is over. But you got to take all these things into account. And everybody always says, when you start tuning cars, you pay to play. You take these risks, you know it's coming, but for certain people, it's worth it. There are people out there that bought the 10-year, 120,000 mile warranty. They want to have zero cost of maintenance owning this truck for the entire time. And I absolutely respect that. And I think that's a valid concern to have. Don't tune your truck if that's the case. This thing's already super fun to drive, totally capable. It's gonna beat 99% of other trucks out there, not 99% of cars, but even then it's gonna be a quick, fun vehicle to drive with zero maintenance headache for you. And even if you have maintenance headaches, they're all gonna be covered under your warranty. With the tune, there are some considerations. That's all I'm saying. But to go back to it, I'm risk averse, and I still absolutely went with it and have zero regrets about it. It does work the turbos and engine a little bit harder. It creates that additional torque, so it's putting a little bit more stress on your entire drivetrain. But again, the transmission tune helps that, I think. Let's go with, you lose some mileage because it's more fun to drive. So that's, I mean, it's a downside I talked about in the last one, but you don't buy a Ranger Raptor or a Bronco Raptor or a F-150 Raptor or a TRX or a RHO or any of these vehicles for gas mileage. You buy them because they're freaking fun, and you know you're going to be at the gas station a lot. The only bummer is this only has a 20-gallon tank. That's why I have the extra 4 gallons, so I can go the extra 60 miles. So here's one that nobody really mentions, but the resale value of a vehicle with a tune versus without. There's absolutely a group of people that want a truck that's already tuned because they were going to do it anyway, and they trust the truck. They trust their ability as a mechanic. There you go. I think that's a small percentage of people, though, to be honest. If I'm looking to buy a used vehicle that's forced induction turbos or superchargers, I don't want it tuned. I don't want to go into that knowing the guy tried to get every bit of performance out of their vehicle and drove the snot out of it. Granted, that's what these cars are made for, like M3s, Mustangs, this truck. They're made to be high revving, fun, to get on it, and they've been tested for that. But just know, when you go to sell your truck or car, whatever you have, if it's been tuned, you're going to immediately, subconsciously, some of these people are going to say, I don't want that car because it's been driven way too hard, when that may or may not be the fact. I drive my truck hard and it still drives fantastic. But if I was looking to buy a used Ranger Raptor and I saw my truck that had been tuned and another truck owned by a 65-year-old, 70-year-old dude that didn't tune it and drove it on the trails every once in a while, I'm picking that other one. I mean, I'm just being honest. I love my truck. I wouldn't do anything different. But if I'm buying a new one or new to me one, I'm going to take care to make sure that I know the backstory of it. So just a thought, resale value. If you're keeping your truck forever, do the tune. Even if you're not, you will probably be able to find someone for this niche vehicle. Most people are going to want it with the tune. But if there's a choice between one with the tune and one without, most people are going to pick the one without and then do the tune themselves, knowing more of the history that this truck is probably more mechanically sound. That may or may not actually be the case, but that's what people think. Let's see. We've already talked about this. Any increase in performance increases the risk of a component failure. But I mean, my thought before is if you're going to, when this thing is stock and it's covered fully by warranty, it's covered to tow. You could get up to your gross vehicle max weight, tow that up a hill with your foot to the floor in third gear going 60 miles an hour at 5,500 RPM. I don't know what the math works out to, but and if you break your truck because of that, because the transmission can't handle it, you're covered all the way to that fifth year, 60,000 mile or extended warranty. Yet if you put the tune on it, you don't have anything on your truck. It's bone stock for add-ons like my rack and everything like that adds weight. If you have none of that on it, but you have 35s and you break a differential, they're gonna say you put bigger wheels. But if you had done that same thing with the trailer, you're covered. So those are the types of things where, I mean, to me, that's a downside and just things to think about again. But the good side of that is it is made to do those things. So I think it will handle most of what we do to these trucks. Now, if you're putting 40s on here and lifting it up and, you know, changing the entire thing, yeah, you might break something. You might want to put a different differential in the back and actually upgrade your entire drivetrain. So this is not a downside. This is more of an aside. I've mentioned in my previous videos, I would love it if they came out with a Ranger Raptor R, which a lot of people are saying, hey, this tune makes this the R version of the Ranger Raptor. Okay, yeah, it adds power, it is more fun, it is faster, but to me, a Ranger Raptor R is putting the 5-liter, maybe not the 5.2 supercharged from the Raptor R, but just a standard Coyote motor, maybe with a blower, maybe not, in a Ranger Raptor. That to me is a Raptor R. I'm not sure where I'm going with this. Oh, if they did that, or, and then this is my aside here, is if they put this drivetrain with this tune in a sport truck, like I'm from California, I grew up in the 90s, S10 Extreme, the GMC Cyclone, the GMC Typhoon, the Ford Lightning before it was the electric Lightning, but it was like a awesome, fast sport truck. I love those lowered trucks. I have grown out of that. Now I love my off-road truck, but I see those California style lowrider trucks, and maybe they were around the country, but I'm from California and I really liked them. So if they made a Ford version of a GMC Cyclone, that would be pretty incredible with this. I mean, it's basically a sports car that would be fun on the twisty turnies and still be a truck, so you could go to Home Depot or Lowe's and get some dry wood or whatever. I'm done on that tangent. Next thing. Whenever you add power, there's always the recommendation that you add braking capacity. So my opinion on this is the brakes are pretty good, but they definitely have room to be improved upon for the size of this truck and the amount of unsprung weight you have. I mean, I've got the beadlock capable wheels. They're not beadlock wheels, they're beadlock capable if you change the rims. And then these big old 33s, it's heavy. It's a lot of unsprung mass spinning, and then the entire truck is heavy. So braking, you got to be able to slow all that down, and then when you have the ability to go even faster in short distances, you got to be able to slow down even faster. So a brake upgrade, it's not a downside for the tune, it's just something to consider if you're going to be driving the hell out of this thing. Consider a brake upgrade, but that's a very expensive thing to do. And then the last thing, and this is more of a where you are, it was really hard for me to find a dealer that would do the install on this truck, which blew me away. I mean, it's approved by Ford, it's warranted by Ford Performance, and I had to go to 3 different dealerships. The first 2 said, we won't touch it, we won't do that. And one of them was actually a Ford Performance authorized dealership. And they said, no, we don't do that. I think they just didn't know about it yet, which is mind-blowing to me, because if you're in the car industry, you keep up with this stuff and know what's coming. But I guess they got to cover so many different vehicles. I kind of understand it. When I finally did find a dealership that was willing to do it, they were awesome. They did a great job on it. They had to run through some hurdles of going back and forth with Ford Performance to get the voucher number right. because they got to create an account, and there's a lot more to it than just downloading it and putting on the truck. It's VIN. Your PROCAL ties into your VIN, so you can't tune multiple vehicles with it. It's 1-to-1, and the voucher number has to match. There's a lot to it. So just keep that in mind. Find a dealership that you trust. You only get the warranty according to Ford Performance if you have a dealership do it or an ACE certified mechanic. If you do it yourself, they may not give you the warranty. But I've talked to other people that said that's not true. It's a Ford part, and they are confident that they can get the warranty coverage. To each their own. It depends on your relationship with your dealership that you go to all the time. I didn't want to have any hurdles to jump over or hoops to jump through when, you know, goodness forsake, something bad happens to my truck and I got to take it in and be covered under the Ford Performance warranty. So that's it on that. And then cost-wise, I have heard people say it costs, so to get the tune itself from Ford, $825, I think, but there are other, Leavittsville or Levittown Ford or the Buckle Up Buttercup, all those different sites out there have the Ford Tune for like high $600. I got it during a holiday weekend sale from Lethal Performance, and I got it for out the door with tax and shipping for under $700. And then the dealership I went to was going to charge me $220 to have it installed, or $180. It was around $200 to have it installed, about 2 hours of work. But they had so many issues, and I had to go back so many times because of that back and forth with Ford Performance. They ended up doing it for free. So just know it's going to be around the $200 range. I have heard some people say it's around $400. One dude I saw, he only had one dealership within like 300 miles, and they want to charge him $800. And he was adamant to keep the warranty, so he did it. And I can't blame him, but man, that's a tough pill to swallow. In the end, worth it if everybody was getting charged that, but to know that other people are getting it for $200 and you paid $800, that sucks. That's just a crappy situation. So anyway, there you go. Final thoughts. I have zero regrets for getting this tune. I always have that little like nagging, what if this happens? What if that happens? What if you hit, 36,050 miles and your engine blows up? I mean, yes, we already talked about ORM. There's a chance that's going to happen. But the warranty, the fact that Ford stands behind this tells me it's a pretty good product. And then Ford wants their Ford Performance vehicle buyers to be pretty happy. They're not going to go above and beyond and take a loss. But if it's a onesie-twosie thing, they're going to try to appease you. That's dependent on the dealership you go to. But if you have a good relationship and you go in with the right attitude, you're going to get a lot more. You catch more flies with honey. So just be polite, go in there, and if you have an issue, try to work with them. They're always going to try to get more money out of you. It's a business, it's capitalism, but be personable with them, tell them what happened. Don't threaten to go up the chain, but say, hey, if I were to take this up higher, what's the chance of getting, be nice about it and give them hypotheticals, not threats. But anyway, this is not a advice video. This is what I think of the tune. So there you go. Okay, so I had it installed at the 10,000 mile mark after my truck had been fully broken in, only because that's when it became available. If it was available when I bought the truck, I would have done it that day, I think. Maybe I would have let it break in a little bit before I did it, but to be honest, the break-in period, you shouldn't be getting on it, so the tune wouldn't have made that much of a difference in the break-in period or not. If you're just gonna buy the truck and put your foot to the floor, you pay them the check and then you leave and you put your foot to the floor, you go into that knowing you're not doing the dealer recommended or manufacturer recommended break-in period. But I've had mechanics tell me, hey, drive it, get it up to redline or close to it early because you want to seat those piston rings, or whatever their rationale is. I mean, there's two sides to that. Everybody can argue theirs and everybody has their own bit of proof for their concept. I like to believe that one because that's what I did and my truck still works great. I didn't abuse it, but I definitely got on it to see what all the fuss was about, and it was totally worth it. Let's see. Okay, and then my final closing remarks is I would recommend this to my family and friends. If my dad got a Ranger Raptor and he asked me, hey Kyle, do you think I should get the tune? I would say, without a doubt, hands down, yes, get the tune. It is totally worth it. It has zero negative effects on your vehicle from my experience after 7 months and 7,500 miles, and it just makes it that much more fun. If you were working and you're like a young 20s, you worked really hard to get the money to buy this truck, you're barely making ends meet, and you're happy with the truck the way it is, and you bought the extended warranty, and you can't afford to deal with like a blown motor, don't get the tune. This truck is awesome as it is. But if you do have that little bit of money and you want it, do the things you want to do, man. You can't take your money with you. Yes, you should save some. You should have an emergency fund and all that stuff. But I got told in college, you want to have memories instead of a full bank account when you're on your deathbed. Now, granted, it's not all or one, but do the things you want and enjoy it while you can. If a tune is going to make you happy and make you enjoy your truck that much more, do it. But if the stress of the what ifs, you know, make it so you don't enjoy your truck because you got the tune and you baby it even more than you had if it was stock, don't get the tune. Nobody out there is saying you have to get it or you know, why'd you buy the truck in the first place? People will say that, but just ignore those people, man. You got to do what makes you happy. And I'm done ranting. Anyway, the tune is awesome. Get it. If you're on the fence about it, get it. If you have specific questions about individual things, go on the forums or shoot me a message. I try to answer every single comment, and I think I've gone way over on this. So anyway, thank you guys for watching. I'm going to have a video in the background. You've probably been watching it this whole time. I'm going to either try to go out to a trailer or find an older one that I did, just so you're not just staring at me the entire time. You can have something in the background to watch. That's it. Have a great weekend, everybody. Cheers. Enjoy your trucks. If you have questions or if you have ideas for future videos, let me know. I'm happy to make them. All right. Bye.
It's over!